Restoration Nation, this is Pastor Steve Harris coming to you from my house, actually, which we're in the kitchen, and this is The Grind. Thanks for joining me. Oh, wait a minute, it's not just me. I have two very special ladies here that are from another program, another show that we have on Restoration House Media Network. And what's that called again, ladies?
It's called Raw.
Raw?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With...
I'm Ria.
And I'm Renee.
Aha, see that? They were trying to cut in on my territory. I know it, I know it. The show is based on things that are specifically for entrepreneurs or church planners. You know, people who are starting something new, and a lot of times, you know, you just have things that happen to you along the way that nobody tells you about. You just kind of figure it out, or somebody could tell you 20,000 times their experience. Today, what are you grilling me about?
You want to say?
We're going to talk today about offensiveness. So being offended or being the offender.
I better get some coffee for this one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so about offensiveness right now.
Yeah, so can you tell us why you think people get offended?
Well, there's a many an answer to that, but the bottom line is when a person has their own worldview, whatever it may be, however they see the world, however they view things, whatever values they've been brought up in, whatever hurts and trauma they've been through in life, all that gets packaged into who you are today. So if you've had something happen to you when you were 3, and it never healed, never even knew what the problem it was, and all through life, anytime somebody picks a certain thing, it reminds you of that, you can get offended.
We just talked about that too, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've had issues with, you know, some things in my childhood and so forth, and you know, all of a sudden it comes out. You and I have talked about things in private about, you know, yours and mine, and it really does. It defines who you are. So when something happens and it triggers it because it hasn't been healed, an offense can come really quick.
And that's a really good word, triggers, because woo, can they get pushed really quick.
She's so beautiful. I had to say it. in every
I'm his
video.
wife.
Yes, this is my wife. So, so ladies, what questions do we have here?
Do you want to start first?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, because this was yours. So.
The question that I would like to ask Steve is, in a society of political correctness, where many can be offended, how do you deal with offenses in the business world?
Well, I can tell you from a pastor's perspective, straight up, when you're a church plant, not everything you say is going to go over so well. And you really have to have some tough skin. And there are also times where you have to say things and figure out a way to convey them to people without bowling everybody over and just saying, here it is, and people get totally offended by it, and your church is emptied out because of it. And you didn't mean anything by it. God told you to say it, but He never said how. So I always have to check myself to make sure that when I'm saying something, I can. It's like you know, I tell Anna Marie this all the time, and some of my congregates, right?
Who's Anna Marie?
You. That's her real name.
That's
My nickname's Ria.
So, honey,
Yeah.
sweetheart, love of my life, if you had a little boogie in your nose right now, okay, I could tell you this. I could say, hey, get the snot out of your nose. And I could do that in front of a whole bunch of people, which would really embarrass her. And it might bring her back to 4th grade when somebody did that to her on the playground.
And you know what else? It would offend the people around me too, that you did that in public like that.
Because I
it
treated
was
my wife
ignorant.
that way.
Right.
And people know it real quick. They can sense it, they know it, right? But if I said to you, hey, sweetheart, you'll get the picture real quick. And now what I'm doing is, I'm helping you so you're not walking around with a whistler in your nose, okay? And in the meantime, I'm not going, hey, you got crap in your nose, which sounds awful, all right? So without being too flowery with it, because the truth does have to come out, but it's the way you say it. And I'm working on it, and there are days where I blow it, both in the congregation And at home, and people I talk to, and they're like, "You offended me." They won't tell you they're offended. They'll just go away. So when you look at it from a business perspective, and I was in the business world many years, and I'm actually on the board for the Millville Chamber of Commerce. I have to be careful what I say, even about religion at that table, because if I talk church or whatever, I have to say something like, "In church world, we do this." So if I'm talking about business, or if I'm talking about like marketing or whatever, I'll say, just a pointer, in church world, we call that this. And then that doesn't put any pressure on anybody to believe. It's just saying, in my world over here, because they all have different businesses that they either run or they're high up in, I could say in our country here, this is what we call it, this is what we do, or this is how we do it. And now it doesn't take all that. But if I stand there in the middle of them and saying, "The Lord told me to tell you," forget it. Now I could pull somebody aside and say that. If I do that right there, they're going to vote me off the board. It's going to be it's going to be done. So that's a long-winded answer, actually. But when it comes to professional, when you're in that kind of environment, it really is a dicey thing, because the two greatest things that people are told not to talk about, which they should, is politics and religion, which are the two biggest topics that are pretty much going on in life. So they didn't teach us this in school, but we have to do a better job of communicating, listening, having an empathy and an understanding for people, and not just saying, "Well, I don't believe what you believe, I'm out." Or, "You offended me because you told me something I didn't want to hear."
Yeah.
It takes big boy or big girl britches, if you would, my mom would say, to pull up and actually hear constructive criticism, and then be able to say, "I'm going to receive that, and I'm going to examine it myself to say, did I handle that right?"
Right.
And my wife is finally getting the courage after almost 19, well, close to 20 years of marriage, to confront me on some things. She's like, "Honey, I think you need to reword it that way," because normally I would just blow up and go, and then she'd run in the other room. But she's now coming to me and saying, "Listen, I need to say this."
And that brings me to my next question. What do you think the telltale signs are to know if somebody's offended or not? I was just kind of getting that as you were talking.
Body language, right
Yeah,
away.
big time, right?
Body language.
Like, I know,
my wife was upset with me
my
this morning about
countenance will
something.
totally go down, right? Yeah, I was upset with you because we didn't deal with something.
As we were talking, I noticed your arms were crossed like this. And you were just like that the whole time.
Yeah.
Your face goes down, your eyebrow goes
That's what
up.
I just said, my countenance. Yeah.
I could see it. Your eyebrow, like right now, even it's just a little bit up. But then I get that laugh, and I'm like, that tells me right there, I'm still mad at you about this morning, but I still love you.
We
You're
still have
cute.
to talk about whatever it was.
See, I told you. So that's what you see, and she's looking on and going, "This is
No,
great."
I can relate to this because
get marital 101 here.
I can relate to this because I've had the experience where I've taken class that they talked about body language and how to read people if they're looking at you eye to eye, if like they kind of look to you to the left or if they look to the right, if they're crossed their hands, if their hands on their head. They're different things that actually does mean something. Even down to let's talk about the political thing. They said even the way that the president shakes another president's hand means something. If they hold it, if it's over top, that all means something. So there is something to body language and conveying what's going on under the surface.
If I talk to you right now, you out there, and I'm constantly going like this, what I'm doing is I'm pointing at you and I'm offending you by just doing that.
And you know how I feel about pointing.
And even though I may not mean any of it, by me going like this constantly, it's saying you need to, you need to, you need to. There's a time and place for it, but you got to be very careful with it.
And one thing I like about you, because you're a pastor,
Well, gee, thanks.
you don't preach at people ever.
No.
You're very transparent. You put our lives on the line. You talk about stuff that we go through.
Put our lives on the line.
Yeah, you do. Our lives have to kind of be an open book, to a degree, right? But you don't preach at people. You preach to them, with them, and
them.
relate. Yeah.
With them.
Yeah, not really
Because-
too. Yeah, not
Because
too.
everything I say from that pulpit, not everything is going to line up. Because I'm human.
Yeah.
If I interpret something one way and I feel convicted about it, or I should say I feel passionate about it, I'm going to say it as such because you speak with authority, right? But what if I'm wrong? And that's why I tell people all the time, check me. Ask God.
Do you get offended?
I'll tell you how I get offended. And it takes a lot, believe it or not, to get me riled up. But once it happens, that spark goes, it's like, woo. And my anger has gotten a lot better over the years. But I used to get fired up about anything and everything. I get offended when people don't have the courage to sit down and give you the courtesy one-on-one and talk to you face-to-face about something and just say, hey, look, this is bothering me. And chances are it's not even a big thing, but they won't say it, they'll just leave.
Or, I mean, I think it's a good thing if they actually type something up and at least do it that way, because maybe in the moment they couldn't do it face to face, but at least if they, that's kind of like sending a letter, if you would. It's kind of like a SOS, something's going on. No, because it can still save a relationship.
See my body language? See my body language?
I had a
His
snap.
hands are
I got my arms like
And look,
this.
I had to actually, you know,
She's
and I
hitting
didn't
me.
mean to hit him. Like,
She-
that was a love tap. But
She's hitting me, and I'm going, I'm not
and you know what?
this, you
Speaking
know?
about offense, he gets offended when I hit him. You know, that's not very
That I do.
nice. That's not very
That I
nice.
do.
I say, that was a love tap,
Yeah.
buddy.
If I went like that, knocks you off the thing and said, oh, sorry, it's a love tap. Yeah,
No, that's not a love tap, you know?
You see what's going on here, right? I mean, we have our stuff too.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, Renee has her own life and she's got,
I've got a lot of stuff.
you got a lot of stuff and you've been through a lot of stuff. And the point is that for me personally, when I get offended when people don't have the courage to tell me something face to face, and then at the same time, I think one of the things that really gets me is when somebody, it's one thing when they, you know, back in our days, they used to say, yo mama, you know, and I'd be like, you know, you don't know my mom, just shut up.
And that's very not nice.
But it's not nice,
nice
but
thing
it's
to
like,
say.
I can, you know, but when somebody goes to the core of something and they really hit on you and they dig right into your heart about something that is very, very near and dear, that hurts. Especially if somebody makes fun of you, because I've been in a situation where I was made fun of. So somebody picks on my weight, somebody picks on
your clothes.
and my outfit, my clothes, because of where I'm at right now. My wife will say to me, well, I'm just going to keep your clothes because you're going to lose weight, and that is a non-starter for me. So I get upset. She's right. I need to lose it, okay? But at the same time, the way she's saying it is offending me. And she could say, honey, I love you. I want to see you around, which I tell her all the time. I'm worth more dead than alive. But
That's so
but the
wrong.
bottom line is, you know, kind of zeroing back to this, be careful what you say to people, but not to tiptoe and dance, because you're never really going to not offend someone. In the gospel, and you know, we talk about from the Bible is offensive in itself. Now, Jesus was trying to give hope to people, but it made you come face to face with the fact that you're not king.
That's a whole nother story there.
And so that can offend people all the way around and then some. But in closing, I would say this. If somebody says something offensive and it's personal, I would take them aside after you've filtered it through for a moment and just say, listen, I just want to let you know, you may not have meant this, but this was a hurtful place for me. And so I just, I just want to let you know that. Like, that this is a soft spot for me. Can you handle me a little bit better?
It's hard to do.
Now, if that's your
Easier
boss
said
and
than
your boss
done.
is like, you know what, you're fired, then guess what? Then you may have to fire me. I'll find another job. Life is short. I've done too many funerals of people way younger than me. But I refuse to put up with people who are going to treat me like dirt. I refuse to do it anymore. So I'm just going to say that as my closing thought. If you get offended by something, ask God, check it, see if it's something you need to work on. If it's something they did, then you're going to have to work through it. And they may not even forgive you or vice versa, but you got to worry about your own heart. So on that note, ladies, I really thank you so much for joining
Thanks for
me today.
having us.
Thank you.
Because my ADD kicks in when you're not. So, on that note, guys, check out rhmillville.org. Please give us a big thumbs up if you love this. If you love this this particular video, and don't forget to subscribe to Restoration House Media Network. That is our YouTube channel.